Ideas that influence the scientific revolution. Following directions, we open the Padlet link, we watch the mini lesson, which is what you're just getting started on right now. You review the sources and then you answer the questions in the pod. So let's get started by going to the Padlet. And you started off by answering a question related to this quote, and it was asking you what you think that Newton meant when he wrote this. I made a video explaining this and connecting it to part of yesterday's lesson, which is going to help you achieve and understand the final question in today's lesson, which is how did scholars in the scientific revolution build on ideas? Okay. So all of the readings have the screen recording, and I give an explanation throughout the readings of sort of tying them to what this end idea is. But what we really need to understand in this lesson is that scientists and scholars during the scientific revolution, they looked at each other's ideas, which yesterday we learned was easier to do because of the printing press. People were able to make more books. It was cheaper and a lot easier and faster. So people could read each other's ideas and then build on those ideas. And where that really started was by people looking back at Greek, Roman, and Muslim scholars and the ideas that they created, which sort of spurred the start of the scientific revolution. And that is what allowed for collective learning. And collective learning, the sharing of ideas, and the creation of the scientific method is what allowed for these incredible achievements, okay? And then we take a really quick look at the nature of comets, which we read an excerpt of a primary source from Albertus Magnus, and this was written prior to the scientific revolution, about 300 to 400 years prior to the scientific revolution. And you're asked to analyze this first sentence. We will give the correct view about the comets and confirm it by the authority of many physicists. Now, then you have a few options as to which step in the scientific method it relates to. And I'm just going to point you in the direction of what I just mentioned prior to this, is this idea of collective learning and talking to other people, sharing your ideas with other people. So which one of these steps, and you have a list of 4 options, which one of these steps suggests that you talk with other people or communicate with other people to help you analyze that first sentence? And just, again, this video right here, I read through this reading, I do a little bit of explaining, I talk about this picture very briefly, and then we're going to take a deeper look at how how views changed in astronomy. Astronomy is the study of space and the bodies in it, such as planets, stars, etc. So we start at Ptolemy, which is 150 CE. So this is, about 500 years prior to the start of the scientific revolution that we look at Ptolemy's geocentric model, which the geocentric model aligns with what the Catholic Church believed. The Catholic Church and Ptolemy believed that the Earth was at the center of the universe. And we see scientists and scholars, as we move on to Tusi, we see that these scientists and scholars, they had their doubts about Ptolemy, so they had to actually look at this person's ideas and they had to read them. So again, collective learning, building on ideas from the people before. And by looking at Ptolemy's ideas, then Tusi was able to come up with his own model. Even though it was geocentric, he had some sort of different ideas about explaining movement of planets. So he built on Ptolemy's idea. Then this brings us to the last astronomer we're going to look at, which is Copernicus. And Copernicus looked at Ptolemy's ideas and was like, Ptolemy is wrong. it's actually a heliocentric model where the sun is at the center of the solar system. So he used Ptolemy's idea to come up with his own idea, which is the idea that we follow, that the sun is at the center. And he also, in his findings, came up with some similar findings as Tusi. We don't know if Copernicus figured this out by himself or if he was exposed to Tusi's work, but we see this building of collective learning from Ptolemy to Tusi to Copernicus. Scholars and scientists built on those ideas through collective learning and through reading each other's ideas and communicating with each other, sharing data, answering questions. I'm pointing to step 7 here because this is a really important part of the scientific method, and that's what really allowed for ideas to evolve and shape, and it's what allowed for incredible achievements during this time period.